I have about 6 talks that I give that I can give almost in a coma. You were about to hear probably the most disorganized, disgruntled public speech I've ever given. And I'll tell you why. I've been in self-publishing since 1968, and some people say that if you get one good idea from a seminar, it's been worth your money. So far, I have 112, and I think Ted Nicholas deserves a hell of a hand for that. Secondly, it doesn't put a dime in my pocket whether or not you buy his products. And perhaps you shouldn't. Perhaps you should spend the next 25 years learning this stuff the hard way. Because my motto is, you got to be tough if you're going to be stupid. So if you're tough enough, don't buy this stuff. You'll learn it yourself. You know, $250,000 and a quarter century later. I've listened to the audience's questions, and I feel that they have been all intelligent questions. But I also feel they were nearly all off the mark. You people have asked about printing, you've asked about fulfillment, 800 numbers, merchant accounts. Those aren't stupid questions. But let me try and emblazon something in your mind. In self-publishing and in direct marketing, if 100 equals success, 99.9 of that success is getting the sale. And that's what all of your questions should be about. Where do I get my books printed? There are 10,000 people who can print your books. How do I get an 800 number? There are 10,000 services or whatever many for that. How do I get my orders fulfilled? People in the phone book have solved those problems. Never worry about problems that have already been solved by multitudes of people. Now, I'm not berating you for asking these questions. I'm just saying you're asking these questions out of sequence. Because in the larger scene, the answers to those questions are of very little consequence. If you don't know the answer to the one big question, and that is, how can I sell my product on a cost-effective basis? That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how you sell your products, not how you fulfill them, not how you get them printed, not how you get an 800 number or anything. I've been in self-publishing since 1968. I have made so many millions of dollars that I have become a legend in my own mind. None of you should feel jealous about that, because I have the same capacity for keeping my money as a pig has for solving geometry problems. I've got a big earning capacity because I have to, because I'm so stupid about money. But because of self-publishing, and even though I'm an idiot about keeping money, I still manage right now to live in Key West, Florida, in a beautiful home with a double-sized yard, a swimming pool, a jacuzzi, and a waterfall. I drive a Cadillac, bought a Rolls Royce for my girlfriend. I have 3 boats. One is the original Sea Hunt. One is a Ribowitz, which some people consider the finest fishing boat in the world. And almost all of that came from money that has been sent to me in the mail or telephoned to me with credit cards. When I fly over the United States, I look down on the country with happiness, secure in the knowledge that 1 out of every 3 homes I have flown over has sent me or one of my clients that I got a commission on a check. That's the only part about flying that I actually like. If selling is the number one thing you have to concern yourself with, then the number one question you have to begin with, the bedrock, is what is it that I am going to sell? And Ted has offered you some really excellent suggestions on what to sell. And I am going to give you some almost foolproof suggestions on what to sell. What you want to sell, ideally, is a superior version of a book or other information product that is already selling well with superior advertising. It costs too much to be a pioneer when the road has already been paved. Now, how do you find products, books? I'm just going to refer to books, but when I say books, think videos and all the other things. But let's just how do you find books that are selling well through direct response? It's very simple. You get letters in your mailbox, if you're on enough mailing list, about them over and over, or you see them repeated in magazines over and over and over and over. One of the things, a lot of people think of me as a creative genius, and although I would be the last to deny that, the truth is most of my success, more of it comes from cowardice than it does from creativity. And I'm afraid to try and sell diet pills to weightlifters. I'm afraid to try and sell gain weight formulas to fat people. I want to sell things that are already selling. Now, I not only publish my own material, I also have an elite handful of clients that I work with in such a manner that if they let me choose the product, I guarantee that they will get a winner. And I charge an awfully lot of money. And if I don't produce a winner for them on the first time, I have to do it on the second time, and so forth. So I try and make damn sure I do it on the first time. I'm not going to read all of this letter because much of it's confidential. But I have a number of clients that I've worked with on this basis, and I spent hundreds of hours picking the product that I would sell for them. I'd like to share with you my choices that I outlined to them in a letter I wrote Saturday, November 28th. There's 10 products. I'm not going to tell you about 2 of them. They are confidential. But I am going to tell you about 8 of them, and they are all books. 1, the approximate title of this one will be What to Do About Arthritis Pain. I envision it selling for between $10 and $19, and there is a huge proven market for such information. 2, approximate title, How to Pick Up Girls Instantly Anywhere in the World. This is another proven monster product of which similar ones have been selling well for years. There is no end to this market. 3, approximate title, How to Negotiate and Win No Matter Who You're Up Against. And I went on to say, you know, every time I get on an airplane and leaf through the in-flight magazine of whatever airline I'm on, I see a multi-page ad for the Karas Negotiating Seminar. It cost hundreds of dollars to attend this seminar, and I believe $317 to purchase the tapes of same. I'm sick of seeing this ad. It has been repeated so often for so many times that whomever running it must be worth a fortune. Now imagine someone having read the Karas ad and then a few pages later seen another ad for a negotiating book which gives the Karas and other techniques and much, much more and selling for only $39 to $69. Seems like a natural to me. 4, approximate title, 57 proven ways to lower your golf score. Combine a killer ad with a low price tag, $19 to $99, and I think the golfers of America will gobble it up by the thousands. 5, approximate title, 27 secret ways to melt off body fat, hour by hour. What can I say? There's just no end to the market for diet information. 6, approximate title, latest facts on how to cure prostate problems. If you're anywhere near my age, you almost certainly know prostate problems are a major concern to the majority of men after they reach 50. Books offering this type of info have been selling like hotcakes for years, and there's no end in sight. 7, approximate title, how to flatten your stomach in the fastest way humanly possible. The flatten your stomach appeal has been pulling well for over a decade, but I can't help but wonder how much more profitable it would be with one of my ads pulling in the sales. 8, approximate title, how to get what the U.S. government owes you. This was my first successful mail order book idea, and like the Social Security ad and book, it has been copied profitably by many others, and I say they're like hyenas yapping at my heels in different variations. Personally, I think it's time for me to get back into this game and create a super book which will be sold with a super ad. This area is all the more enticing now since there are so many cars, boats, homes, etc. that have been seized by the DEA and customs agents, which can be purchased dirt cheap by a person who has the right info. Why did I pick those projects? I don't think there's any mystery or any of you have any doubts about why I picked those projects. They are proven appeals. They are never-ending concerns of people. Get up in the morning and read USA Today. How to give your golfer an extra 50 yards for Christmas for only $9.95. Golfers are like heroin addicts. They will spend any amount of money for any gizmo they think will take 2 or 3 strokes off their game. Are there any golfers in the audience? Is that not true? That's absolutely true. Reading USA Today, I picked up an ad. Does a man's prostate have to grow into a problem when he grows up? Would you raise your hand if you're a male over 50? Would you agree that there's never going to be an end for the market for prostate relief? Huh? What now? It is crucial for you to know what appeals work. The most important thing Ted said in this seminar, if you never get anything else out of it, is that you don't sell people what they need, you sell them what they want. You can swim upriver if you want to, and trying to sell something that's trying to be logical about selling is one of the most difficult swims that you are ever going to make. I'm going to suggest another couple ways for you to get ideas for products. One, Ted mentioned you should get the SRDS Consumer Magazine book, and you should. Because when you read of a special interest magazine and find out its circulation, you know that there is enough people, and they have captured the names and addresses of those people to be viable. Like model railroading. You wouldn't believe the publications. You know how many model railroaders there are. But you should also get the SRDS list book. And you should read the descriptions of those lists. It should be your nighttime reading. What they do is they list nearly every mailing list available in America. They tell you who owns the list, how to contact them. They tell you how many names are on the list, what the average unit of sale was, and what the appeal was and what they bought. And you will see lists all the way from a couple hundred thousand or a couple hundred names to 78 million names. Now, if you're going to put your time and energy into writing a book And writing is the single most difficult work in the world. Does it not make sense to write a book that's going to sell a ton of copies as opposed to writing a book that's only going to be read by your mother-in-law because she'd be too embarrassed to not to? And so if you read the SRDS list book, for example, and you find that last year 475,000 people purchased by mail a book on how to lose weight, and only 1,250 purchased another book on how to gain weight, what are you going to write your book about? How to gain weight? Got to be tough if you're going to be stupid. So you should, of all things you should become, is you should become a student of markets. Become a student of markets. Now, having said that, I am now going to talk about what I call selling formulas. And what I have learned is the best way to work with these selling formulas. What you really have to do is you have to get your selling presentation down on paper. That is the first step to every great marketing campaign. And then you have to translate that or permute it or reform it or adjust it into what I call delivery systems. I look at my sales message as a nuclear weapon and the delivery system as the vehicle that gets it to the consumer. And we're going to talk about some delivery systems and ways to make, that I have found through trial and error, to make those delivery systems more effective. No matter what form of direct response marketing you get into, you must understand the basic principles of superb direct mail. Because if you market through magazine ads, the most profitable point in your whole business process is the day you get the order from the ad and send that guy a first-class letter saying thank you, reselling him on he made a wise decision and giving him the opportunity to buy something else. That's direct mail. If you sell by television, it's the same thing. You've got to understand direct mail. I could talk to you about direct mail for the rest of this seminar, but I'm going to do a very condensed version of how I learned some very hard-won lessons. The first thing I ever published, well, the first thing I ever tried to publish was something called The Modern Homemaker's Budget Decorating Guide. And when I discovered the world of mail order and direct response, I was so enthralled by it. I read every book, bought every course, traveled to the Library of Congress. I would drive 100 miles to buy a $10 manual. I went to the library in Manhattan when I lived in Ohio and could hardly afford to get there. And I studied everything and I learned everything these advertising experts had to teach me about magazine advertising and direct mail. And I started working in direct mail and I followed all those rules and I just lost all my money. I went down the tubes. Many of you already know this, but there was a point in time I actually was spending the utility money to buy postage, to mail letters, and we would be sitting in a dark house with no running water waiting for orders that never materialized. And my wife, who is not my wife anymore, was a very stubborn, pig-headed woman who thought that living in a dark house without running water was a sucky way to live and said, if you're going to continue doing this, you better damn well figure out how to do it. So I went down to my basement and I put myself in a mindset that I call ice brain. And I said, what would you do if you had to write a letter to somebody and ask them to send you money, and if they didn't, the government would behead you. Then I thought, well, I'd learn some of these tricks I used while selling Sarker Peters door to door. I wouldn't do all this other stuff. And very briefly, the way direct mail is supposed to work, according to advertising agencies, is like this. You hire an expensive copywriter to write your letter. You hire an expensive graphic artist to doll it up with expensive color artwork. Then you have a very expensive brochure made. Then you have an envelope with teaser copy written on the outside. Then you have a letter shop assemble all this. And because bulk rate postage is cheaper than first class, you have that postage printed on. It gets delivered to the post office. Postal employees, being very ambitious and vigorous about the job and happy to get your mail, they sort that mail as fast as they can. They send it through the postal system. All the other people in the post office system are really happy to be dealing with your bulk rate advertising mail, and the end courier hurries and delivers it to the prospect who's standing there with her whale box just waiting to buy another copy of a book like yours, and she takes it, rips open the envelope, writes a check, and sends it to you, and you get rich. It works slightly different than that. The way it really works is like this. If you do your mail like that, on the average, letter shops in America only deliver to the loading office of the post office 90% of the mail that they charge you for. I'm not saying all of them are dishonest. I'm making a generalization. There are some very good ones, very honest people. So you've paid for 100,000 letters and only 90% of them have gotten delivered to the post office. That's where they weigh them, and they give the letter shop owner a receipt that says that he delivered 100,000. How do you get a postal employee to do that? Drugs, money, and sex. It's real simple. Okay, so now he gives you a receipt and that says you've mailed 100,000 letters, but you've only mailed 10,000. When you mail bulk rate, if someone has moved and left a forwarding address, your letter doesn't get forwarded. On any given mailing list, it's almost always going to be 7% dirty. So now you're down 17% of your letters because they didn't get forwarded. In addition to that, 17% of properly addressed bulk rate mail that's obviously advertising gets thrown away from the post office. That's the average. So now we're down 34%. That means you paid for 100,000 direct mail sales letters, and you've got 66,000 of them delivered, if my math is correct. Now comes the really bad news. And I know I've said this, some of you have heard this many times before. I never apologize for repeating it. It is the most important thing you will ever learn about selling by direct mail. You should write it down. The people of America sort through their mail while standing over a wastebasket. Of the type of mail I have just described, 75% of it gets thrown away unopened. That means if you mailed 100 letters, the way the advertising agencies and all the experts teach you to do it, all the phony experts, you mail 100 letters, you'll get 66 of them delivered, and 75% of that thrown away. What's that leave us with? 16 letters out of 1,000 that actually got to the target and got opened. Here's how to avoid that. It's my semi-famous A-pile, B-pile theory. I believe the people of America separate their letters into two piles. One pile I call the A pile, which is everything that is or appears to be a personal letter. The B pile is everything that's obviously advertising. Everybody always opens all of their A pile mail. Most 3/4 of all B pile mail is thrown away unopened. How do you get your mail in the A pile? It's very simple. Suppose you like or dislike what I have to say here, and you decide to write me a letter about it when you go home. What you will do is you'll go home and type the letter, or if you have a secretary, you'll dictate it and she'll type it, you'll proofread it, sign it, you'll put an envelope, you'll write or type my name and address on the outside of the envelope, you'll take a real honest-to-God postage stamp, put it on there, and you'll put it in the mail to me. Right? You won't put any teaser copy on the outside of the envelopes. Personal messages don't have that. Did you ever get a letter from your lawyer where on the outside of the envelope it said, "Here's hot news about your new lawsuit"? Did you ever get a letter from that lady you had a one-night stand with in Atlanta where it said on the outside of the envelope, "Honey, you were great last night"? Personal letters aren't written that way. Personal letters, the biggest reason that people open an envelope, what is it? To find out what's inside. And if you say, "Here's how to get Time Life at half price," you don't have to open the envelope to find out what's inside, because you may not know all the specifics, but in a general way, you know what's in that envelope. A subscription pitch for Time Life magazine. So never use teaser copy, never use bulk rate. Now I'm going to tell you something that might surprise even Ted, because it surprised a lot of big marketers. You can use bulk rate in a way that will be more cost effective than first class mail, and you shouldn't do it anyway. I'll explain why. If you use a buff-colored envelope and a bulk rate stamp and direct impression addressing, the main thing you will do with that is fool the postal system into thinking it's first-class mail and that they have to deliver it. And sometimes, not too often, but sometimes, using bulk rate in that fashion will be more cost-effective than using first-class mail. But here's the rub. Remember when I said on the average, 17% of bulk rate mail gets thrown away? That's the average. Sometimes they throw it all away. Mark Stoddard had a tested appeal. He tested it every way from Sunday. It was a big money maker. He dropped 600,000 pieces of mail and didn't get a single check. He went to Chicago to find out why. It was easy. All 600,000 letters were in the dumpster behind the main Chicago post office. Write this down, please. Bulk rate is the dumpster rate. Make your letters personal. Now, when you use direct mail, sometimes it is very helpful to have an order coupon and a brochure with pictures describing what you're doing. And I found out from a pornographer how to do that and still maintain the personal look. This is a true story. I had a girlfriend that owned one of these private mailbox services, and one of her customers was a pornographer. And he sent out letters just as I described, a pile mail, but he had a white sealed envelope in there, and he said, "Contents." He said, "Warning, do not open this envelope if you are offended by explicit pictures of naked women doing absolutely insane, debauched things, And I got to thinking about that. That's a hell of a good idea for much more palatable marketing things. So I still use brochures sometimes. I still use order coupons and so forth. But what I do is I put them in a plain white sealed envelope and say, "Please read this. Please open this envelope after you've read my letter." Do you see the difference? Selling is like seduction, but it's not rape. And seduction works best if there's a little foreplay, if you go on a date and buy dinner and have a little wine or something, etc., before you pop the big question. This is a cleaned up version of how I usually present this. Because I promised Ted that I would do that. So I'm going to try and make the point in a sanitized way. But what I'm saying here is that it isn't just the question which in that case is, will you go to bed with me? And in your case, it's, will you buy my book? It's just not the question, and it's just not how you ask it, it's when you ask it. It's when you ask it. And the dummies in direct mail land ask the question on the envelope. Before there's been any warm-up, any foreplay, any wine, any meals, any nothing. You know, I can't get many women to go to bed with me under any circumstances, but if I asked them when I first saw them, I think I'd be beaten bloody. That's what these guys are. They're financially beaten bloody. They ask the question out of sequence. That's a very heightened version of direct mail. Make your direct mail look personal from one human being to another. Use first-class postage, direct impression addressing, and if you have to use brochures and order coupons, which are sometimes legitimate, put them in a sealed envelope inside the direct mail piece. When I followed all the rules those people had taught me, as I said, I failed so badly my utilities were turned off. When I followed the concepts that I just presented to you, I sat down and wrote a one-page letter, contained 361 words. I used to brag that it was the most widely mailed letter in history, that there was 140 million of them mailed. That was before the guy who bought the company was at a recent seminar of mine and revealed there have now been 500 million of them mailed. But when I was there, it took 40 women to make our bank deposit. We took in 20,000 checks a day. You know, that was back when making 100 grand a day was a big deal. I can't believe I sold the company and blew the money. Anyway. But I've been using those techniques ever since, and they work. And I ask you, do they not just make common sense? Listen, I want to see everybody raise their hand who automatically always throws away their personal mail. Now I'd like to see everybody raise their hand who routinely throws advertising mail around. Raise your hand. Look around. Everybody does it. Don't ever let anybody talk you out of this. That's one delivery system and how to strategize it. Let's talk about another delivery system. Another delivery system is print advertising. And you are getting some of the best advice I've ever heard from Ted Nicholas about print advertising. And what I'm going to say is very similar to what he's saying, and maybe it'll just reinforce it, or maybe it'll give you a slightly new perspective. Here is the best thing that could possibly happen to those of you who have a book you want to sell. This is the dream scenario. A reporter hears about your book. This reporter works for the New York Times Book Review. And he gets a copy of it and he reads it. And he falls in love with it. So much so that he wants to meet the author. Or authoress, would that be correct? And he flies out to meet you. And not only does he fall in love with your book, he falls in love with you and your wife and your children and your dog and your cat and everything. And he goes back and he writes a full-page rave review about your book. And as a public service, in the last column of that review, he tells people the price of the book and how to order it. Now, I have a surprise for you. That is unlikely to happen. But you can make it happen. You be that reporter. And you write a rave review about your book that looks like an article. That's very important. There's another note you should take. Ads that have an editorial look, an article type look, get 500% more readership than ads that look obviously like ads. So write your own rave review. I have mixed results from using coupons and not using coupons in the ad. Usually I don't. Usually I have standard verbiage saying, will this book help you? It's easy to find out with no risk whatsoever. Here's how to order. All you have to do is write your name and address and the words World's Best Diet Book and send it with your payment of $39 plus $3 postage and handling too. And it fits right in there with those The ordering instructions are crucial parts of your advertising, and you should study great ordering instructions. So one delivery system is what I'll just call straight direct mail. Another delivery system is what I'll call straight space advertising. Another delivery system, and I would say to those of you in this room who are working on a limited budget, this is the delivery system that has the highest percentage chance of success of all marketing models known, at least known to Halbert. And that model is running small space display ads that generate leads. Now notice I didn't say classified ads. There's been a lot of people lost a lot of money in classified ads lately because they got suckered into running thousands of dollars of them because they're so cheap. But what the people don't understand is that the offers that work in classified ads relate to subjects that people normally read classified ads for. You don't read classified ads every day. You read classified ads when you want to buy or rent an apartment or sell a house or get a job or buy a car. And if you have an offer related to those things, it'll work in a classified. Generally, your offers won't fall in that category, so you want your lead generating ads to be display ads. Not classifieds, display ads. I have a client who has a book that sells for $1,250. And there is nothing to increase its perceived value. There's no video cassettes with it. There are no audio cassettes with it, and so forth. He hired me to sell it for him, and it's selling like hotcakes. And you know how I did it? And it said, there's a lead-in headline that says, wouldn't you like to make your money bulletproof? And then the main headline says, free report reveals how to pay zero taxes and totally eliminate lawsuits. To get your copy, call such and such a number. Now, the reason you want to run those kind of ads is because the most expensive thing in all advertising is waste circulation. And if you run an ad in a newspaper, and let's say that the ad is for piano lessons, the fact of the matter is that only a small percentage of the people in that paper are interested in taking piano lessons. All the rest of it's waste circulation, and you have to pay for it. And paying a full page for a publication that has 99% waste circulation is too much. So you need this hot little lead generating ad that sucks it out. When the lead generating comes in, you immediately send them by first class mail a multi-page, hard-hitting letter selling the living daylights out of your product. Which brings up a comment. No one's asked me that question. I don't even give people a chance to ask me. Well, nobody will read all that stuff. Here's what the statistics show. 2-page letters, outpull 1-page letters. 4 pages, outpull 2. 8, outpull 4. 16, outpull 8. 32, outpull 16. I don't know where it ends, but I know that it doesn't end at 56 pages. Now what I try and do is teach people how to think about things, because no one can teach you every little ramification. But if you can teach people how to think about things, then the ramifications become easy. And I want you all to imagine this. I want you to imagine that God, being the merry prankster that he is, got bored one day and took your spouse away from you, and you could never be with your spouse again. And God said, since I'm God and I can do whatever the heck I want to do, I've decided to have a little fun with you. Now, I know that you need a woman if you're a man, or a man if you're a woman. I know you need another spouse. So I've selected 100 of them from which you have to choose one of them to spend the rest of your life with. And just because I'm God, I'm going to make it a little harder. You're not going to get to meet them. You're not going to get to talk to them. You're not even going to get to see a picture of them. I'm going to have each 100 of them write you a letter. And from those 100 letters, you got to pick the man or woman you're going to spend the rest of your life with. What would you want that man or woman to tell you about themselves? Everything there is. I mean, would you like, hi, my name is Bunny. I like astrology and walks on the beach. Sure hope you pick me. That ain't going to make it. That's standard advertising agency stuff. Know this. The people who are non-prospects aren't going to read 3 paragraphs of your ad. The people who are genuine prospects for your product want to know every single damn thing there is about it as long as it's still relevant. Do not worry about long copy as long as it's still relevant. You don't throw it in just to make it longer. It's got to be relevant. Another thing that you might be interested in product, in determining what to market. There's a company called American Business List. And what they do is they computerize on a daily basis every ad that appears in all the yellow pages of all the 5,000 telephone books in America. And that database is broken down by the size of the company, the type of the company, yearly sales, the manager's names, the telephone number, and the number of employees, etc. Now, all of you know, I think I publish a newsletter. Several of you in this room get the newsletter. And I've been so busy marketing other people's products, I really haven't had time to promote my newsletter. But I got to thinking, you know, I just started my newsletter in 1986. I made one mailing to it that brought in $1.75 million. Maybe I ought to get more subscribers. So now I've decided to do that. I have a book, it's called, many of you have the book, it's called How to Make Maximum Money in Minimum Time, and mostly it's a collection of back issues of my newsletter with some additional material. Well, I've come up with a new plan to market it, which I'm working with several of my clients on, and I'm going to share the concept with you in the hopes that it will spark an idea how you could do something similar. Let me tell you something. I hate plagiarism. I think I have had more people steal my writing than any other person in direct response. What you should do when you see someone else's work is you should be inspired by it, to go above it. You shouldn't Xerox it. Anyway, let me tell you, this book that I have, How to Make Maximum Money in Minimum Time, Again, we're talking about selling formulas. And here's one I'm about to try. I'm going to take the attorneys in the United States. There's 415,000 attorneys. And I'm going to send them all a letter, and it's going to have a big headline across the top, and it says, "Free book by top ad expert reveals how any attorney can double the profits of his law practice." And then I'm going to customize the letter from an attorney's point of view so that he can visualize how the concepts in that book can build his practice. In fact, we're also going to customize the book for attorneys. And then what am I going to do next? My next, I'm going to say, "Free book by top ad expert reveals how any dentist can double the profits of his practice in less than 60 days. And then we're going to go to chiropractors. We're going to go to small business owners, etc. You can make a major, material, magnificent difference in the profitability of your marketing efforts by repositioning your product and your advertising appeal. I'm going to recommend a book that you all should get. I had to travel to the Library of Congress and have someone photocopy the book for me. It was written something like 60 years ago. It remains the best book on publishing, the most informative book on publishing ever written. It's called The First 100 Million. And it's written by a guy named E. Julius Hadelman. Now, you can either get it, I don't know if, I have a subscriber who has a lot of out-of-date marketing books, and his name is, what is his name? Carl Galletti. And if you want his number, you can call my office, and one of my secretaries will give it to you, and ask him if he has it. If he doesn't have it, it is worth your while to pay somebody in the Washington, D.C. area $200 or $300 to get them to Xerox a copy of that book for you, and I'll tell you why. E. Julius Hadelman used to sell something called the Little Blue Books. And he would run full-page ads, and the books sold for a nickel, but you had to buy 20 of them. You had to pay $1 worth. And he would categorize them like foreign languages, ethnic jokes. They were all, and most of them were how-to books, self-help, etc., etc., etc. Now, the unique thing about the way he was selling it is that people bought what they really wanted to buy. Now, you women don't know this, but when Playboy first came out, guys like us didn't have the stones just to go say, "Hey, give me a copy of that and pay for it." That isn't the way you bought Playboy back then. You bought National Geographic, and you bought Time, and you bought Life, and then you bought Playboy, and you stuck it in the middle there, and then you took them up to the clerk, and it would be, and that's how you'd buy Playboy magazine when it first came out. Well, guess what? Hadelman, after he had sold 100 million books, kept statistics on every one of those books he sold, and he is able to rank the appeal of books in absolutely strict numerical order, and that ranking is almost 100% valid yet today because human nature never changes. Guess what the #1 appeal for books is in America? You got it. Back then, it was what every girl should know and what every boy should know. They couldn't use the kind of titles we can now. But sex was the #1 appeal. And Hadelman found out, as Ted Nicholas has told you, by changing the title of the book without changing a word of the concepts, you could increase the sales 500, 1,000%. Some good titles the best, if you're stuck for a title, you can never do better than how to. Some other good ones are Secrets of, The Art of, An Amazing Way to, Now at Last, and so forth. But he has those, and those titles make great headlines, and that book should be in everybody's library because it gives you an exact statistical representation of what is inside Americans' minds in rank order. And the information is as valid today as it was before. Let me see some of my notes, what I want to say here. Formulas. I sell a newsletter. If you are thinking about going into the newsletter business, you should know that is the most difficult form of information you can sell. The people who buy newsletters are the most intelligent and dedicated and real players in the world. The reason the other people don't buy it is they don't understand that success is a process and not an event, and they want the miracle answer right now. And that's not what you get with a newsletter. They don't want it parceled out month after month. They want one $10 book that tells you where to find the magic genie and what spot on his belly to rub to make the money rain out of the sky. So newsletters, I will tell you this, if you think about publishing a newsletter, people ask me, how long does it take you to write your newsletter? It takes me 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's never out of my mind. My newsletter is me. It's my life. The newsletters that succeed are the ones that are called personality letters. And that doesn't mean that you just put personality in it. It means that the writer takes a stance. If your newsletter doesn't offend anybody, you won't get a high percentage of renewals. I don't write my letter to deliberately defend people, but I take very strong stances, and I write my newsletter the way I would talk to you after you and I had gone out and had a few drinks together, and we said, hey, let's cut through all the crap. Gary, tell me blah, blah, blah. And some people appreciate that, and a small percentage of uptight PhDs who never made an honest buck in their life do not like that kind of action. But if you're going to write a newsletter, if you're going to publish a newsletter, number one, make sure you are a stone flat out total expert in your field. Don't try and fake a newsletter. Number two, put your personality into it. But this is about how to sell it. And if you're selling a newsletter, there's one way to sell a newsletter that works very well. And that is, you give away something valuable that that person can keep if they give you a trial subscription to your newsletter, and if they decide to cancel, they still get a refund and get to keep the premium. And that premium should be related to the newsletter and contain the immediate magic genie answer that they're looking for, so it satisfies both situations. That's one selling formula. Give away a premium with a trial purchase of your product. A premium that you can keep even if you decide to return the premium for a refund. That's a selling formula. I'm going to tell you one I am experimenting now that's fascinating. I have found, I don't really understand it exactly, but I have found that few people are indifferent to what I have to say and what I write in my personality. A lot of people don't like it, but few are indifferent to it. And I have found out that my flagship book, the Maximum Money book, is like a giant meat cleaver dividing a sea of humanity. And it takes all these ugly, dull, boring losers who are image conscious, and it puts them over here, and it puts all the players who want the straight scoop over here. And so it occurred to me, the more people I can get to read my book, the more people I will get to subscribe to my newsletter. Now I want to tell you a very interesting story with a very important marketing ramification. Probably the best media buyer I know, the most knowledgeable guy for opportunity type magazines, like Success and Entrepreneur and Income Opportunities, is a guy named Jay Flanagan. And he told me that blind ads, most of the ads in those magazines are blind ads. They offer a mystery secret. You know, I was broke, I was eating the bark off trees, sleeping in my car, and then all of a sudden it came to me and my whole life changed. And now I've got tons of women, 55 Rolls Royces, and 127 homes. And you can have it too if you'll just buy my secret for 10 bucks. Now my ad describes exactly what you'll get. It's very specific. But those blind ads outpull my specific ad by 3 to 1. But there's a major difference. When a person buys from one of those blind ads and he gets the book, as a general rule, that's the end of the business relationship. When a person buys my book, which was very specifically described, and finds out that it lives up to every promise I made and more, it becomes the beginning of the relationship. And a very high percentage of those readers go on to be subscribers, lifetime subscribers, clients, video and tape buyers, seminar attendees, etc. If there's anything you want to have etched in your mind about the marketing equation, it's what Ted said. You should think of yourself as building a relationship, not making a sale. Your first sale is the most unprofitable one you will ever make. But if you satisfy your customers and deliver more than they ever thought they would get, that is so rare in America that they will buy from you over and over and over. And I thought it might interest you to know something I'm experimenting with, because it may be a formula that possibly you could use if you have any high-priced products to sell. I ran recently an ad, 1 column wide, 13 inches high, describing my Maximum Money book. And it's a financial newspaper called Investor's Business Daily. And I offered the book for $10. I then ran another ad about a week or 2 weeks later. It was the same ad, except I offered the book free. Giving the book away free got me 3.2 times more orders than asking $10 for the book. The ads cost about $713 a piece, which means I have a little less than $1,500 in advertising in those books. Now here's what I did as they came in. This is a formula. As soon as we got the order for the book, whether it was a $10 order or the man got it free, the first thing they get is a personalized letter with a dollar bill attached to the top of it that says, "Thank you for ordering my book." Oh, I just say, I have a standard opening. Did you notice there's a dollar bill attached to this top of this letter? There are 2 reasons. Actually, there are 3 reasons. 1, I have something very important to say to you, and I want to make sure this letter would get your attention. 2, since what I'm writing about concerns money, I thought using a dollar as an eye catcher was especially appropriate. Here's what it's all about. Recently, you ordered my book, How to Make Maximum Money in Minimum Time. I am writing this letter to let you know that the book has been sent to you, will be sent to you tomorrow by first-class mail. The point of this letter is not to sell you on anything, because you've already bought the book. The point of this letter is to sell you on just reading it, because unlike other books, it doesn't contain a lot of hot air. It it lives up to all the promises, and I retell him what he's going to find out about when he reads that book. And at the end I say, you know, you can do, as far as the dollar is concerned, you can do whatever you want with it. You can buy yourself a beer, give it to charity, but let me tell you what I hope you do with it. I hope you frame it. And I hope a year or two from now, somewhere down the line, someone asks you about that framed dollar on your wall, and you say, well, that's the first dollar I ever had because of my relationship with Gary Halbert, and since then I've gotten over 1 million more. And I tell them it's happened many times, and it has. So imagine that you order a book. Would that, write this down. Astonish your customers. Astonish them. Astonish them. Astonish them with the quality of your service and your dedication and your products. Astonish them. The Japanese do it, and we are indifferent. Dave Barry went to a hotel in Japan. The faucet leaked. The whole place panicked. They sent a whole crew up there, 15 minutes. I'll bet you in the hotels of America, you're just a pain in the neck if your faucet leaks. They don't want to know you. Astonish your customers. It'll pay off so much. Imagine, you don't know me, many of you do, but if you had known me and you honored that book and the first thing you got was a letter with a dollar bill attached to it urging you to read it because you made a wise decision. You should see the letters I get just from that. Step 2 is I send them the book, first class priority mail. Step 3 is I send them a letter by Federal Express. And it's a short letter, it's a cover letter. And it says, I want to thank you once again for recently ordering my book, How to Make Maximum Money in Minimum Time. Say, listen, I understand human nature, and I know that a lot of people who buy my book are just voyeurs and wannabe and just would-be entrepreneurs and never will use any information no matter how valid it is. On the other hand, many other of the people who read my book are real hustling, ambitious, intelligent go-getters that realize the value of good information. And if you fall into this latter category, you're going to find the contents of of what's in the sealed envelope extremely valuable. And when you open it up, you find out my pitch, which I worked a month on, me and John Carlton, on how to become a lifetime subscriber, which costs almost $3,000. That's a formula. Now, you may be interested in knowing the preliminary numbers on that formula. At this point, it's paying out 10 to 1. Think of it, though. Think of what I'm doing. First of all, I'm making damn sure I'm selling the best book on the subject in the world. Secondly, I'm sending them a dollar bill thank you letter and suggesting they frame it because maybe 1 million more may come. Thirdly, I'm sending the book to them first class priority mail. And fourthly, I'm sending them a Federal Express sales letter. By the way, my company is the biggest user of Federal Express in Monroe County. We're even bigger than the military. And the thing is, have you ever dealt with a direct marketer that gives you that kind of attention? Formulas. Now, let me see what else I got of here. I want to take a look. Okay. Just a couple other notes, things you may be interested in knowing. When you mail direct mail the way I told you to using first class mail, if at all possible, deposit your mail at the post office on Saturday. You want your mail ideally to arrive on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So deposit your mail on Saturday. Another thing that may interest you is that when you use direct mail, count the day you deposit your mail as day 1, and on day 12, generally, you will have half the orders you're going to get, half the money you're going to get. We call that double day. In first class direct mail, the 12th day is generally double day. When you advertise in newspapers, the first 2.5 days worth of orders is usually half of all you're going to get. If you advertise in a national newspaper like USA Today, and you offer them the option of ordering by phone and by mail, approximately, and this is very rough, don't rely on it, all the phone calls you get on the first day by 5 o'clock will represent approximately 10% of all the orders you're going to get. Let me see here. I'm going to tell you one more story and then I'm going to conclude. Ted talked about active listening, active viewing, and active watching. You got to be conscious to make it in this world. You got to be alert, you have to be focused, and you should think of yourself, please write this down, become an opportunity detective. I would like to tell you a story about an opportunity detective, which was me. For some reason that I can't remember, I was visiting the Akron Beacon Journal newspaper. And I was talking to one of the executives there. And he was showing me this little form that they sometimes run as a public service called Request for Statement of Earnings. And this little form, you send it in, and you find out how much you've paid into Social Security. And he said, but we don't run anymore. And I said, why not? And he said, because even if we bury it on page 74, we get so many thousands of requests it ties up our staff. And when they would bury it on page 74, I worked out the statistics, something like 17% of their circulation were sending those forms in. So it goes click into my mind. So then I knew that Social Security was a hot subject. So I wrote an ad called How to Collect from Social Security at Any Age, and it had a double coupon. And it said, you fill out the first coupon, and we'll send it to the proper government agency for you. And they will, in turn, send you a statement showing exactly to the penny how much you've paid in. And when you fill in the second coupon and send it in with your payment, we're going to send you a book that tells you how to maximize the return on all that money you paid in. That was in the 1970s. And when we ran that ad in newspapers, we got 35 orders per every 1,000 circulation. I don't know if any of you know what that means, but if you're in direct marketing, you did. And we made a net profit selling that little book at $3 of $1 million. That book has been ripped off many times. So I decided to rip off the rip-offers, and I've written a new ad for one of my clients. It's called How to Collect from Social Security and Medicare at Any Age. And it puts all the new advertising techniques that I didn't know when I wrote the original ad. I'm going to conclude by asking a question of you. How many of you have books already that you want to sell? May I see your hands? How many of you are working on books you want to sell? How many of you would be interested in selling those books by the boxcars full without having to learn how to write copy, without investing any money, or without paying any printers or taking any risk whatsoever? Does any of you would like to do that? Well, good, because I'm looking for products to sell. And if yours is viable, I'll take it on, get the financing, write the ad, and do the whole thing and give you a commission. Does that sound like a pretty good deal? And I'm pretty good at it. That's all I have to say, except that one of the biggest mistakes people make in selling is that they forget to ask for the order. They get real shy about that. And I'm going to get off the stage now. What I want you to do is give me all a big hand.